Over the years, there have been many inquiries about the Atlantic 70 catamaran Saphira. Her long, lean hulls and sail plan of side-by-side, freestanding mast draws interest wherever she sails, and indeed it is a very interesting boat. She was designed expressly to meet the needs of a sailing couple who cruise long distances and enjoy sailing to remote locations. The main goals of the design were to make the boat easy to handle and fast enough to outflank bad weather while being safe in all conditions. Reliability of the rigging and primary structure was also paramount, as well as easy maintenance for an owner-operator. Getting all of these features into one boat can be a challenge. The owners, Peter and Jennifer Francis, both have a lifetime of blue water sailing experience and knew exactly what they wanted. They assembled a design team that included me, Chris White, Robbie Doyle, Dirk Kramers, and the Southern Spars design office, along with the composite building skills of Eric Gertz. The following is a video report largely recorded aboard Saphira in Tahiti in June of 2024. But first we need to go for a short sail. This video clip shows our approach to the Virgin Islands, beam reaching at 14 to 16 knots in about the same true wind speed. Okay, we're sitting in the Catamaran Saphira in Papeete, Tahiti, with Peter and Jennifer Francis, owners and co-designers of this fabulous 70-foot all-carbon cat with a freestanding biplane rig. And they are wrapping up their cruise through from the Gambiers up to the Tuamotus and Tahiti, and putting the boat away for the season, about to go home next week. And I thought I would just ask them a few questions about the boat, and particularly handling the boat with such a unique rig. One of the driving forces in development of this rig was the safety aspect of being able to ease the sheets on any point of sail without the sail getting plastered on the shrouds. So this has a freestanding carbon mast in each hull with a large square top mainsail on the mast, and even running deep off the wind, you can let the sail luff. You can just ease the sheet and let it luff. And I'll let Peter's done a lot of research on this boat, and they have 35,000 miles of sailing time on it, and he can sort of explain a little bit with Jen how they handle the boat, and maybe when the rain stops, we go out to the cockpit and show what strings we need to pull to make things happen. So I guess, Peter, I'll let you start. I mean, just briefly explain why this rig.
Great. Well, we're happy to talk about it because it excites us a huge amount. It's really worked out the way we had wanted it to. We're very fortunate to have had literally thousands and thousands of miles of experience on both monohulls and catamarans. And what we were looking for was a boat that safely could go fast and two people could manage it with no problem at all. So one person's asleep and one person's awake. You're basically single-handed. So the concept of this boat was it has no topping lifts, there's no stays, there's simply a large vang which we basically use to hold and set the boom. And at any given time, if we perceive there's an issue, we can simply let go of the main sheets and the sails rotate to the wind. They flag to the wind. It's a huge safety.
This is even running off on a near dead run. I mean, you can let it luff.
Not even near dead run. You can do it on a dead run. In fact, the masts were known to be able to rotate 180 each way, 180 degrees each way, but we made them so they could go 270 each way, because if they ever were at 180, they might move back and forth, and so we wanted to allow for nothing to break. And so yes, we can be going dead downwind, even frankly, we can be going by the lee, and we can let them go. We're just going to go right to the wind,
yeah,
and then we can roll the sails up around the mandrel, dead simple.
Okay, you brought up reefing. I guess in the first place, we'll talk about the size of the sail plan. You did quite a bit of experimentation early on with two smaller cats with different rigs. One cat had a conventional rig, and the other cat explored the fore and aft freestanding mast and then a biplane side-by-side configuration. And I think as a result of collecting data from those, you found that one of the big advantages in the biplane rig was that you could put more sail area in the boat without interference between the two masts. And the fore and aft configuration limited the sail area quite a bit. And when you went into a biplane configuration, you could expand the sail area such that there was no need to carry large downwind sails, because you had enough area in the existing sail plan.
Exactly. So the two sails in the boat, as you note, are big, and also the masts are wings, so they count for some of the sail area, roughly 7 to 8%. But in any case, those are the only two sails in the boat, and they represent the sail area for a boat of this weight, and it's light, and this righting moment, as if it had its full main plus its full big shouldered spinnaker up. So when we put both sails up, we basically have our spinnaker up. And that is a lot of sail area, but so easily controlled because the booms can swing clear of the mast, as I mentioned, 180 degrees both ways. So at any given time, you can depower in the simplest possible way. In addition to that, because we have vangs, and the vangs are the thing that pull the tension onto the leech, our main sheets have no block and tackle. They're just a single part main sheet, and the implication of that is they have very little friction and much less rope. So when you let go of the main sheets, those booms go right to the wind.
Yeah, yeah. So there's no need for a spinnaker or a screecher or a reacher or any of these things that you've got to muscle out of the hatch and hoist up and unroll and hope you can roll it up again when the wind starts to blow. It's just very simple.
It's dead simple, and actually one of the things that Jennifer and I really love, we can sail the boat on one sail just fine. And sometimes that surprises people, but if they're familiar with proas, which are basically catamarans with one smaller hull, they're sailed with one mast and one hull, and there are different ones, whether they're in the Atlantic or Pacific. Sometimes they're in the windward hull, sometimes in the leeward hull. So if we're sailing along, we can go with just one sail, and that's a lot of sail area all by itself. Mm. And there's a bunch of other things that we can do that we can talk about.
So downwind, it's sort of the ideal trade wind configuration, where you can put them out either wing and wing or both to the same side and have this massive amount of projected area that's very easy to control, because you can reef it on any point of sail. So if you're sailing downwind and the squall comes up behind you and starts to blow 40 knots, you can just ease the sheet till the sail loads are diminished, and then start rolling it up.
Yeah, or completely flag to the wind.
And your rolling system is just describe that for a moment.
So many people are familiar with in-boom furling. In those, they have the boom shell and a mandrel inside the boom that the sail rolls up around. Our mandrel is above the boom, and the benefits of that are the mandrel is bigger around, so it doesn't bend as much, which is important. And in addition to that, we can see it as it's rolling up.
Right.
And if it's rolling incorrectly at all, literally with one button push, just tiny button push, we can change the angle of the boom and change the way it rolls.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of research when we were in a big arena where there are a lot of super yachts with in-boom furling, and they were hyper about having somebody watching it and worrying about this and worrying about that. We don't have that problem. We can see it, we can roll it, and so it's dead easy.
Makes perfect sense to see it as it's rolling, just to make sure.
So it's doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
With no problems whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Now, upwind with this biplane rig, going hard on the wind, both sails are basically in clear air. The minimal disturbance between the windward and leeward because they're so far apart. I've been on the boat when I've seen the boat sail where they're just ripples on the water, and you're going upwind at 6, 7, 8 knots in 5, 6 knots of wind. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so think about it, and this was one of the concepts of the boat, and on our test cats, on the stilettos, we learned that this worked out really well. But for us, we also have 2 engines. So we one in one hull, one in the other hull, like a typical catamaran. So if we turn on one engine and just put it lightly into gear, maybe 1800 RPM, that will create roughly 5 or 6 knots of boat speed, which turns into apparent wind.
Yeah.
Add that to the wind that's already there, and suddenly a 5-knot wind is 11 or 12 knots, and we can be going 9 or even 10 knots upwind, just pushing along.
At very, very low fuel burn.
It's remarkable, and we have 300 gallons of fuel.
Yeah.
And so that gives us a huge range that can be incredibly effective.
Yeah, and helps in remote places where getting fuel can be hard to get.
Absolutely. We've had that.
You don't have to have them full all the time. Sailing around New England in the summer, you probably only have 50 gallons aside.
Right.
Okay.
I was thinking, Jen, when you think of sailing this boat, because you're sailing it alone, what do you think about sort of the ease of handling, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, so it is lovely to have just these 2 sails to think about, and sometimes, as Peter said, we will only put up 1 sail, especially if we know we'll be on a beam reach, for example, and we know there's going to be enough wind. It's much easier just to have 1, and we'll still be going at great speed. And we average over long distances, over the whole time we've had this boat, we average 11 knots overall. So we go fast. And we've seen easily, many times we are surfing or even just sailing along at 14, 15, 16, and we've seen up into the 20s. And it just doesn't take much to push this boat. But going back to our downwind sailing, it is just a wonderful thing on this boat because it is so secure feeling, because you've got your booms out so far, let's say you're going dead downwind, that you've got them 90 degrees out, and so the chance of having an accidental jibe are almost zero, because the wind would have to come around so much. Yeah. The other nice thing is that if the wind shifts a little bit from the dead aft position, let's say it comes over to one side a little bit, it's very easy to accommodate that. You don't have to jibe. You just change the sails a little bit if they're out on each side.
And so, I might point out the booms are well above any people.
Right.
If you're standing in the cockpit, the boom is 7 feet overhead or higher.
Yeah, it's really not an issue, and it swings clear of the cabin,
Yeah.
swings clear of the other mast.
Yeah.
So we're not hyper concerned about that. And most boats, of course, they have cap shrouds or things that stop that boom from coming around. We don't have that problem.
Yeah.
And on a catamaran, oftentimes people concern themselves if they're reaching along and a squall hits. They ask themselves the question, do we head up into the wind? If they do that, they're going to have to turn their engine on because they won't hold it into the wind, or head off. And that can be dangerous
Well,
too.
yeah,
And they won't get the sail down.
In a conventional boat, the first thing you got to do is roll up the jib, and then turn on the engine, roll up the jib, steel your nerves to turn around into the wind with a full main up that you can't ease the sheet very far,
Right.
and then reef it.
You got it. So this is it's a pleasure. And literally, we just leave the autopilot where it is already.
Oh,
Ease the sheets.
yeah.
And at any given time, Chris, if we feel like, maybe we're getting toward the edge of where we want to reef, you can almost depower just by easing one sail.
Yeah.
And you do it right away. And, oh yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, let's reef that one.
Yeah. Okay, we're in Saphira's cockpit. The rain has stopped. Peter's going to give us a little demonstration on how we hoist the main. And let me back up so I can see a little bit more. Okay, so Peter, how about if you go through the motions of hoisting the mainsail, or the starboard mainsail?
Sure. The beauty of the boat is that it's just dead simple to do. Unlike other boats, we don't have to go head to wind or anything else. All we do is we ease the main sheet, and the boom will go out and be faced to the wind, so it's just to the wind. We then rotate the mast relative to the boom so that it's exactly in line. And once we have that, obviously we would have taken all of our sail ties off. We push a button here, which is called hoist active, which goes to the hydraulic unit at the inboard end of the mandrel that rolls it up and makes sure that it drags as the sail's coming out, so the sail can't flow out on you. And then all I do is I come over here to the main halyard and I push a button and start to put it up. And I can go slowly, or I can go fast, and it's as simple as that. We take it up, it's unrolling as we go, it's exactly into the wind, we haven't changed the boat, it's on autopilot, and we're just dead simple. Couldn't be easier. Take it up.
So, Peter, how about if you go through the motions required to drop the sail?
Great. So, basically, if we're sailing along, first thing we would do is to ease the main sheet so the wind causes the boom to swing out. We make sure we line up the mast to the boom so it's straight. And then I can see my vang out there. I set it to a particular position that we know is right, but it's not crazy because I can see the whole mandrel at the whole time. So now I go to my halyard, I raise the halyard just a little bit to take the head of the sail off lock, which it does automatically, and then I basically begin to ease it and I hit the furl button right here, and it simply rolls it up, and I keep easing it out until we have the sail fully wrapped around the mandrel. If the sail is going aft or forward, I can just very, very quickly change the position of the vang slightly and fix that. I can see the whole thing. It's just that simple.
And is this essentially the same process as reefing?
Yes, it is. You would then bring it down to the reefing position, put it on the halyard lock there, and you'd be reefed.
I'll point out that right now Saphira is being put away for the season, and there are covers wrapped over the sail that's rolled up on the furling mandrel. So what you see there is a little hard to get a sense of. And there's also a cover on the mast itself. It goes way up there.
Yeah, Chris, you're right about that. We are really careful about maintenance issues. And when we leave the boat for a period of time, we want to make sure that the sun doesn't damage things. So we cover things, make sure that they're not damaged by the sun unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And that's the way we keep the boat healthy, if you will.
Good. And then everything on the port side is just a duplicate of starboard. It's all absolutely identical. Same boom, same mast, same hydraulics, same halyard sheet arrangement.
Yep, and the same button set for that side, and you have it. So it's just, it couldn't be simpler than that.
And those are two independent systems. So if one system were to have a problem, you're still fully functional on the other?
So there's one single hydraulic point pump for this whole system, one single hydraulic, but if we ever had a problem with that, we have a hand pump to override. And for furling, which is normal because these are Baymar furlers from Italy, they're very interesting. They're hydraulic, but we can override with our drill and roll the thing up if we ever had a problem.
Okay, so I'd like to ask Peter and Jen to address a little bit the livability aspects of this boat. You know, it's an Atlantic catamaran, which means there's a center cockpit with the deck house aft of the cockpit, which has its own unique features in terms of living. Peter and Jen together have spent 4 years, 48 months living on the boat over 6 different seasons, traveling through a great many countries and many different climates, cool and rain and hot and cold, and so take it away.
So I would say, in one word, for us, it's just awesome. We love living on this boat. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but as I sit here in hot Tahiti with the forward door open and the aft door open and a whole bunch of hatches open, air flowing through, almost like I have air conditioning on.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
And we spend a lot of time in this central saloon area. It's really the hub of the boat, although one of the things I love about this boat is there's lots of great spots to sit and to read a book or play cards with somebody or just hang out. And it depends on, you know, if it's chilly, you might want to be on the back deck, or if the sun is shining back there, you might want to be up forward, or vice versa. And so there's just a lot of spots to be really comfortable and cozy. And when our daughter comes and brings 5 of her friends, there's plenty of room for everybody to find their own little spot to settle in and enjoy being on this boat. But this central area is really the key. It's our dining room table, which opens out to seat 10 or even 12 people we've had around our big dining room table, but it folds in half, so most of the time it's more normal size. And then opposite that, we have a couch area with a coffee table that is actually our drink fridge, and so we keep all of our cold drinks for our guests in the coffee table, so they're not going into my food fridge, which is kind of a nice thing. We have our navigation station here, and of course we also have the galley. And in my view, this is one of the best galleys I've ever seen on a boat that wasn't, you know, much bigger than this. It's really well thought out. We have fridge and freezer above, fridge and freezer doors below. There's lots of space to work there. We've had 3 or 4 of our daughter and her friends all cooking at the same time, baking bread, making cinnamon rolls, whatever. But it's just an outstanding galley and how it was laid out. So, and at sea, this is a phenomenal space, because where Peter is sitting right now, that's where we often sit when we're on watch, and usually we're on watch alone. And from here, you can see all the instruments in the nav area. You can have a 360-degree view around, looking for, you know, whatever might be out there. And you've got the air coming in, so we're in a hot climate. You've got a nice breeze coming in, and it's just a fantastic spot to sit while we're at sea.
Yeah, we found these high tops to be really great. The high top desk and the chairs. We'll have a cup of tea here. We spend every 10 minutes, we go out to see what's going on. So we just walk through that door, check out there, walk through this door. We can look both ways, and we can absolutely ensure that we're safe and sound. But it's just comfortable. It's a good place to be. But I can see all the instruments, and I just have a clicker, so it's on autopilot. I'll just move the direction whatever we need, and it's wonderful. One of the small things about the galley that you didn't mention that I really like is it's a full-sized home dual sink, and we have an automatic hot water heater, so we can get that cup of coffee or a cup of tea instantaneously. So we love that. It's a great galley.
What I love about this boat is that even though the hulls are 70 feet long, which sounds like a large catamaran, they're 70 feet long not to have tons of space and lots of cabins and several heads. But that's not what we had in mind when we designed this. We really wanted it to be for us too most of the time, but also have really nice accommodations for another couple and even perhaps another family. So we really only have 2 staterooms with king-size beds in them, which are inflated mattresses to keep them light, and also we think they're extremely comfortable. And then on the port hull up forward, we also have 2 single berths, so you know, young people could sleep up there. So it's not built to take lots and lots of people. We only have 2 heads, 1 in each hull, and
With walk-in showers.
with big walk-in showers, and it's just a really comfortable boat to live on for months at a time. And we both work part-time as well, so this is our office, it's our home, and we just love being on this boat.
And sort of building on that, one of the concepts of having some extra space was I needed to make the maintenance easy for us to do. We're getting older, or at least one of us is getting older, and some boats can be very, very difficult to reach things, and even simple things like changing the oil. In our case, we have full standing headroom engine room. We can actually stand 5 adults around our engine, fully standing. But if I have to check the oil in many boats, you just have to dig down, move mattresses, do things. In this boat, I can hop down there, have it done in no time. And what I find is, if it's hard to do, I figure out ways not to do it until maybe tomorrow, and it just doesn't get done. And so I do a better job. Our water maker may be the only boat where the water maker has its own cabin. And why does that matter? Because, you know, when we want to make sure that those filters are changed, I can go up there and be fully standing, and I can change the filters. It just makes it easy for me to do, and so therefore I do a better job in the maintenance of the boat.
So another aspect of this boat that I just love from a living perspective is our spacious cockpit. Because we don't have a mast in the middle of the boat, it meant we could move the helm forward. Yes, so because the helm is moved forward, because we don't have a mast there, it meant that we could expand the size of the seats, and so we can seat happily 8 people in the cockpit, and that's where all of our social gatherings tend to be. And it's lovely because, of course, you're out in the breeze and in the tropics, you're generally anchored into an east wind, because that's what the trade winds generally blow. And that means that during the afternoon, when you're having your sundowners, the cockpit is not in the sun, it's in the shade. And so every other catamaran where the living space is in the back deck, that's where the sun is blasting in the afternoon if you're anchored in a trade wind situation. And so we've got the perfect cockpit for parties.
Yep, no, it's great. And one of the things we should mention is the boat is really the width of a 55 or 58 foot boat. It's the weight of a 55 foot boat that's light, because it's all carbon foam. But that length allowed us to lengthen that forward cockpit so we can actually really comfortable sleep out there. But it also lengthened our aft deck some. Now, what we find is when we have our daughter on board, but we do it too, is we end up pulling out all the toys from our massive toy locker, so we end up with surfboards and stand-up paddle boards and kite boards and things like that. And there's plenty of space to have it on the back deck. It looks a little crazy sometimes, but it's just an awesome place to be.
Versatile space back
It's
there.
very, very versatile. So we find that it works well. So what we were trying to do, the length was all about speed, sea kindness, it's smoother in the seas, and any space we simply added to the length of things, which made it a really good accommodating space for two people and people who would bring in as guests and things like that. It works well that way.
Easy handling of the dinghy is an often overlooked necessity. Saphira uses a unique davit system that allows the dinghy to be quickly hoisted via a power winch and either carried behind the aft deck or easily brought onto the deck for security when sailing offshore.
So the first thing we do is bring out the chocks. And then simply raise the dinghy. Good.